Welcome to the Secret Keepers podcast with your host, Kareen Zutleger. Join us as we uncover the hidden thoughts, stories, and moments that help bring light to the healing power of truth and examine how silence can affect us mentally, physically, and spiritually. We'll also share profound stories, interviews, and transformative narratives to help release ourselves from the hidden and step into healing towards inner peace, joy, and fulfillment. Now, here's your healing strategist and host, Kareen.
Welcome to the Secret Keepers podcast, and I'm your host, Kareen Zuliger. Today's episode is going to look a little bit different. Since July of 2024, the space has been dedicated to other people sharing their stories of transformation, stories of healing, stories of bringing secrets into the light. And today, I'm going to share my story. But before I begin, I want to give you a brief roadmap so you know where I'm going. Today, I'll share parts of my childhood story. I'll explain what adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, are. And I'll talk about what happens in the nervous system when stress becomes chronic. I'll share how often this shows up in adulthood as overwhelm, anxiety, and burnout. And I'll talk about how healing actually happens in the body, not just the mind. If anything resonates today, just know you're not alone. Back in 2021, my brother died from an overdose of opiates and alcohol. That combination stopped his heart. And as I was holding his body, there was just something inside me that said, this has to end. I literally stood in the funeral home and said, this shit ends here. I can't do this anymore. 5 years before that, we had lost our dad to alcohol, and he was only 59. And so I just looked around at the people that I loved and thought, how do we stop this? And then I thought, why does this happen? But growing up, our home was filled with alcohol. There was violence and dysfunction. And my parents, they were teenagers raising three children. My mom had all three of us before she was 21. I cannot even imagine. So when you understand brain development, as I would learn later on, you understand that the prefrontal cortex, it doesn't fully develop until around age 25 for women, and then closer to 28 for men. And this is where our prefrontal cortex is where impulse control is. And you begin to see that many of the decisions that were being made by my parents, they weren't coming from awareness. They were coming from their nervous systems that were still developing. I mean, don't get me wrong. We had food to eat. It wasn't always pretty. Sometimes we lived on the welfare system, and we were clean, right? My mom, she took good care of us, but we were poor, and we lived with unpredictability. My dad's uncles would come over like after a night of drinking, and for a while they actually lived in our basement. And they would start fights with my dad and violence that it would break out in our home. And us as children, we were so small, and we would witness this. We would witness them hurting our dad and hurting our mom, calling our mom names like whore. Sometimes dad would just come home by himself, and you could hear by the way he came up the walkway, that he's drunk, and he would be mumbling to himself, and all of us kids would hide. Mom would hide. We would just pretend we were sleeping because nobody wanted to provoke him. But often that didn't matter, right? He inevitably would drag somebody out of bed because he was angry. He would break chairs. I mean, at one point we only had the table left because he had broken all the chairs. He would break dishes, smash things in the kitchen. And mom had to make sure dinner was ready for him. We learned to stay quiet, right? We learned to hide. And living in that environment was like having a bear in the cave. If a bear enters a cave once, that's acute stress, right? Your body reacts, your heart rate increases, your muscles prepare, and when the bear leaves, the body returns to safety. But what happens when the bear never leaves? That's chronic stress. And in animals, once danger passes, the nervous system, it re-regulates itself. But in my childhood, the bear lived with us. So our bodies, they never had a chance to recover. My nervous system learned to stay on high alert. This is called hypervigilance, constantly scanning for danger. I mean, I notice subtleties. So some would view this as an attention to detail, but for me, this was adaptive, not my natural state, right? I could read a room when I walk in it. I can notice if things are out of place from where I left them. And then that constant scanning for the danger, the dysregulation of the nervous system, that's when the system gets stuck in survival mode. It's like a thermostat that's jammed up on high heat. So that even when you're safe, your body just doesn't know it. It's just stuck there. And you're walking around thinking you're okay. Um, Many years later, after I was married, my husband, he would ask me, like, why don't you sleep at night? I mean, I did not need baby monitors. I could hear our babies roll over across the house. Um, and I, anytime my husband got up, I was up. And he just was concerned, why don't you sleep at night? Um, I didn't have the science then, but I just knew my body was conditioned, right? It was conditioned to wait for the other shoe to drop, to hear, to listen, right? Is it safe? Is it safe? And after my brother died, I went on a mission. I wanted to understand why. Why does our family repeat this? Why does it happen in families? Why do people numb? Why does addiction keep showing up? That's when I found the adverse childhood experience study. So an ACE is a potentially traumatic experience that happens before age 18, right? Repeated exposure. And there are 10 ACEs from the original study. I'm going to read them slowly. This is a trigger alert right now, okay? I'm going to read them slowly. Please be aware that this could trigger something in you. Now, obviously, you don't need to answer them out loud. Just notice what happens in your body. So, before the age of 18, did you live with a parent or an adult who often insulted you, humiliated you, or even made you feel afraid you might be physically hurt? Did a parent or adult push, grab, slap, or throw something at you? Did an adult or someone at least 5 years older touch you sexually or ask you to touch them sexually? Did you feel that no one in your family loved you, supported you, or thought you were important? Did you feel you didn't have enough to eat, had dirty clothes, or had no one to protect you? Did your parents separate or divorce, or was there a permanent loss of a parent? Did your mother or stepmother experience physical violence? Did you live with anyone who struggled with alcohol or drugs? Did you live with anyone who was depressed, mentally ill, or attempted suicide? Did a household member ever go to prison or jail? If you answered yes to one or more of these, nothing is wrong with you. These questions, they're not about blame. And I think it's really important, right? This isn't about projecting blame. It's about understanding. It's about understanding the environment your nervous system learned in. About 2/3 of adults have at least one ACE. And people with 4 or more ACEs have a significantly higher risk for substance use, depression, heart disease, autoimmune illness. So this isn't weakness, it's biology. And ACEs, they don't just stay in childhood, they show up in adulthood when they're not addressed, right? They're often just quietly. For many people, this looks like overwhelm. Overwhelmed with decisions, overwhelmed with schedules, overwhelmed with noise, overwhelmed with expectations. You might freeze, procrastinate, shut down. It's not laziness. It's a nervous system trying to conserve energy. For other people, it might show up like anxiety, a constant hum of worry, replaying conversations, fearing of disappointing people, waiting for something bad to happen. Your body, it learned that calm was temporary. I know it was at our house. Like you just, if he showed up, all heck was going to break loose. Hypervigilance in adulthood can look like reading the room instantly and constantly, sensing mood shifts, feeling responsible for keeping the peace, feeling responsible for those mood shifts. This often gets labeled as intuition or empathy, and it can be a strength, but it usually began as a survival mechanism. In relationships, this can look like people pleasing, avoiding conflict, or difficulty using your voice. At work, it can look like perfectionism, overworking, burnout, or constantly needing to prove yourself. And then there's coping. Some numb with substances. Other people use food, sugar, scrolling, shopping, staying busy, or working. They're not more moral failures. They're attempts to regulate a nervous system. So for me, my early years was drinking, right? I didn't quite fit in. We moved a couple of times. And as I entered my teen years, really like, how I wanted to like chameleon myself to kind of blend in so people wouldn't know, right? They wouldn't know what was going on at our house. And I wanted to be fun. And so I would drink, and often I would drink to blackout. So that by the time I was 21, I was drinking probably 6 nights a week, if not 7. Life was spiraling. But then I got pregnant, and that changed. And so I shifted from drinking to watching mind-numbing TV to using sugar as my choice. I used it as punishment and as reward. But what I was looking to do was I was attempting to regulate a nervous system that never learned how to feel safe. And here's one really important thing that I learned. I've learned that until the body feels safe, transformation cannot happen. You can think positively all day long, but if your nervous system doesn't feel safe, it will keep choosing protection, right? It's the thoughts that I had, right? That if I did this thing, it was going to keep me safe, right? That became then a habit because I thought it over and over and over. And then, I did it over and over, and then it became a habit and then a belief system. This is the idea where the idea of the window of tolerance comes in. It's the zone where you can feel emotions without becoming overwhelmed or shutting down. See, healing isn't about eliminating stress. We're always going to have stress. It just doesn't need to be buried in a cave for stress. It's about widening the window. What does it look like? What does healthy stress look like? And as I continued to heal, I realized something else. I didn't just need tools. I needed a way of living that supported my nervous system every single day. So through my own healing, my education, my work with clients, I developed a framework called the 6 Anchors of Wholeness. And these anchors aren't about fixing yourself. They're about creating a lifestyle, creating a felt sense of safety, connection, and wholeness in a daily life, right? When we know we're worthy, when we feel the connection, when we feel safe in our body, that's when we're thriving. So the first anchor is appreciation. Appreciation helps the nervous system shift out of threat and into safety. It's not forced positivity. It's just noticing what is already here and already supporting, right? What's already good in your life. Yeah, keep a gratitude journal. So at night I write in there, what I'm thankful for, and then what I'm grateful for because it's what I'm visioning for the future. There's always something that's good. The second anchor is wonder. Wonder opens up the brain and it invites curiosity instead of control. I am a recovering control freak. I felt that if I could control everything, if I controlled my children, if I controlled my husband, if I could just control things that would keep me safe, nothing bad would happen to my children. I would just be happy if I could just control it. But the reality is the only thing that you have any control over is yourself. And for my eldest child, she witnessed a version of a mother who was unhealed. She got the yeller and the thrower and the controller. And I had to seek forgiveness for that. But wonder, it opens up the brain and it invites that curiosity instead of the control. It reminds the body that life is bigger than survival. It's just looking around and being in just total amazement of what has been created. The beauty of the trees and the changing of the leaves and the rolling of the ocean and the sunsets and the sunrises. So much beauty out there. Third anchor is ease, right? Ease teaches the body. It doesn't have to brace all the time. See, like I can often feel my body is just tense and, like just waiting. I had gone in to see a functional medicine doctor. She's like, "How's your stress?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't have any. I love what I do. I have a great life, a beautiful children, great husband." She's like, "Oh, it's interesting, because your cortisol levels would tell me otherwise." My body is still in a perpetual state of fight or flight. It looks like I'm always stressed out, even when I'm relaxed. It did. Let me clarify that. It used to look that way. But with ease, mindfulness activities, I've learned to slow down. I've learned to be at ease in my body. And for those of us who lived in hypervigilance, ease can feel really unfamiliar, kind of scary. But ease is how the nervous system learns that it can rest without danger. Breath work is amazing for this. The fourth anchor is joy. So, joy is the nervous system's response to feeling safe enough to feel alive. Joy doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's quiet. So, like for me, things that great bring me joy truly are watching the sunrise and the sunset, listening to my kids laugh when the three of them are together. They're thick as thieves. And I love that. It's seeing a puppy or a baby, little baby toes, the love of an animal, the love of the people that you love. But what brings you that joy, that like squeal? I remember my niece talking about her beagle, and she had been away for a while, and when she got home, I mean, she opened up the door and he literally was like flipping in circles and his ears were flapping and he was so excited, just pure joy at her being home. That's letting the nervous system know that it's safe. The fifth anchor is alignment. Um, Alignment is living in integrity with who you truly are. Not with who you had to be. Not playing small in my case, not keeping quiet, not using not keeping my voice stifled, not stuffing things down. That doesn't mean I'm rude and I blurt things out, but living in alignment with the integrity of me. Like, what really matters to me? Who am I really? Like, if you know me, you know I value anything that lives. The earth is living and breathing, all the humans, all the animals, all the plants, the ocean, all of those things matter to me. Like, I genuinely love and care for people. Living in alignment means that I'm expressing that. And if somebody is disregarding life, I'm going to speak on it. But I don't have to be that hider anymore. Alignment, it reduces the internal conflict. And when the internal conflict decreases, the nervous system settles. So like I said, I didn't want anybody when I was growing up. I didn't want my friends to know. And some of my very best friends didn't know until well in adulthood the things that went on. Like I never talked about it. I didn't want them to know. The sixth anchor is rhythm. So rhythm restores predictability, right? For our nervous systems that were shaped by chaos, um, rhythm is medicine. Rhythm, it's simple, right? Breathe, move, sleep, pause. Rhythm tells your body you're safe now, right? Get up in the morning. It's good to have a routine. That routine for me is moving my body. It's meditating, it's reading, I love puzzles. I do puzzles in the morning. It's having a cup of coffee, it's spending time with my husband before the day gets going. But all that tells me I'm safe. So let's do a little practice together. Go ahead and close your eyes if you're not driving. Okay. If you're driving, do not do this exercise. Or operating some sort of equipment, machinery, anything, right? You're seated in a safe place. I want you to place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. And then slowly inhale through your nose. And then take a long exhale through your mouth. Now name one good thing you noticed today. Just one. Maybe it was a beautiful sunrise. But just taking that quick little moment. That's how we teach the body that we're safe. Healing is possible. You were born whole. Nothing is wrong with you. Things happened, and now you get to choose what happens next. And that's the biggest piece. We didn't get to choose the home we grew up in, for most of us. We didn't get to choose how our parents were with us and what level of awareness they were at. But we get to choose what happens next. So ask yourself, what is an action I can take today that shows my body it's safe? And if you'd like support, I would be completely honored to walk this journey with you. You can book a complimentary 30-minute breakthrough call at CorrineZuliger.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Corrine_Zuliger. And you don't have to hide anymore. Right? Healing is a path, and you don't have to walk it alone. Thank you for letting me share part of my story. This is just the first leg, and we will get into more of it in further episodes. And thank you for being and listening to the Secret Keepers podcast.
Thank you for joining the Secret Keepers podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please give us a like and follow so we can invite you back. And if you just want more, visit CorrineZuliger.com. Remember, you're not alone.